Boating the rivers of Wrangell St. Elias offers an entirely different perspective on the park's same vistas, wildlife viewing opportunities, and its true wilderness immersion. What's more, you can generally cover more distance while traveling in higher style than when everything has to fit in a pack. It's hard to beat. As we mentioned in the big picture overview slideshow, every type and level of boating skill will find the right river somewhere in the park, including folks without previous experience, for whom the excellent services of copper oar rafting guides are available. In this section, we'll delve a little deeper for a more detailed description of some great rivers. All the river choices in the park have considerations in common. Since they all originate as glaciers, the most important is cold and silty water. You may very well find yourself sprawled out on a raft tube in the hot sun on your trip, but you can't count on it. Preparations for definitely cold water and possibly cold weather are crucial. Complete gear is available for rent at Anchorage, including rafts. Of course, if you're with an outfitter, you'll be well taken care of. Boaters in hardshell kayaks or inflatables will want a dry suit. Wetsuits just don't cut it if you happen to hit a several-day wet spell. Do keep in mind, though, that most of our rivers are located in the rain-shadowed areas of the park, and your chances of very good weather are better than in most of Alaska's well-known rafting areas. Although many other rivers and creeks in the park have been run by extreme boaters, we typically fly groups into one of four rivers: the Chitna, Nazina, Tana, and Copper. Each river is a great trip on its own, or they can be combined for trips of increasing length. Since most of our rivers ultimately flow into the Chitna, let's look at it first. The Chitna itself is swift but largely flat water. From the highest possible put-in at Hubert's, near the Logan Glacier terminus, to the Jake's Bar airstrip, near the confluence with the Tana River, the wildly braided riverbed is extremely wide, at times over 3 miles. Less than a third of that is water, so channel selection becomes very important in this approximately 42-mile run. From Jake's Bar down to the confluence with the Nazina River, where we also have a landing strip, is the most confined portion of the Chitna. For about 16 miles, it averages 300 to 400 feet in width and offers mellow Class 2-ish water with lots of pullouts, in a scenic gorge several hundred feet in depth. Wildlife viewing is excellent through this section, as it is along all the park's rivers. Drifting silently with the flow offers great opportunities to spot both black and grizzly bears, along with moose and lots of waterfowl. From the Nazina confluence down to where it joins the Copper, the Chitna once again regains its broad, braided personality, although its bed is much narrower than the upper section, at more like a mile in width. Many groups run this section after putting in on the Kennecott River in McCarthy or at the headwaters of the Nazina. And speaking of the Nazina headwaters, let's look there next. How many river trips begin by paddling between giant icebergs in a 2-mile-long glacial lake? And the scenery doesn't quit there as the Nazina continues through towering waterfall-laced limestone cliffs, including the overwhelming mile-high cliffs near the confluence with the Chittestone River. An exciting Class 3 section begins where the Kennecott River enters and ends at the confluence with the Chitna, at which point one can fly out or continue on down to the Copper. The Tana River offers the biggest water which we typically fly rafters into. Although beginning as a classic braided glacial river at the toe of the giant Tana Glacier, the river enters an exciting Class 4 canyon about 15 miles up from its junction with the Chitna at Jake's Bar. There are 2 fly-in locations upstream from the canyon, one about 5 river miles up and the other about 9. Both offering good flat water wilderness floating before entering the canyon. Of course, the canyon's great wilderness too, but in the big water sections you'll be too busy boating to look around much. After the Tana joins the Chitna, flyout is possible right away from Jake's Bar, or another 16 miles of beautiful canyon further down at the Nazina confluence. Many groups continue the run on down another 45 miles to the Copper confluence. The Copper River itself can be the grand finale for any of these trips, of course. After it picks up the Chitna, both are equal size at their confluence. 90 miles of gorge, unsurpassed anywhere on the planet, slices through the Chugach Mountains to the Pacific Ocean. Largely braided, fairly flat, but extremely swift, over 10 miles per hour at times, the Copper offers outstanding wildlife viewing several expansive glacier terminuses, and continued absolute wilderness all the way to River Mile 14, the site of the historic $1 Million Bridge. You can take out there or continue further into the Delta, home to countless waterfowl and other wildlife. The lack of roads in the deep valleys of Wrangell St. Elias Park are what gives its rivers such a unique character, but they make airplanes essential for many sections as well. Wrangell Mountain Air has the experience and the aircraft to make your trip possible. Give us a call for more details on floating Wrangell St. Elias Park. We're more than happy to help you come up with your perfect trip. Thanks for listening. We look forward to meeting you, and have a great float.